Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for spending time with me again today on Innerviews. I'm super thankful to all of you who take the time to watch these videos and learn from the stories of the entrepreneurs who have had the courage to go out and start their own businesses. So today I'm speaking with Quintin Herbst. Quintin, will you tell us a little bit more about your business and why you started it?
Thank you, Melanie. Absolutely. Yes, my business is in wellness consulting, basically holistic health. My purpose is to generally get people on board with how to impact their lives in a positive way to make a real difference in their own health status. I find that the modern world is full of traps and I suppose things that get us very distracted from our personal well-being, and we therefore need mechanisms in order to basically get back on track. So my business is all about providing an efficient and effective, a practical and a sustainable means of doing this. That also includes a joy concept. The joy concept for me is something that ties into the latest science around how to sort of manifest what you want for yourself in your life. So that's a key aspect of my program. And as I've mentioned, the other aspects in terms of being efficient, being effective, being practical and sustainable are all key to what really is important about health. Because it's not something that just is temporary or fleeting in our lives, but it's something that we need to make a reality that is consistent with our day-to-day existence.
Now, I got to know you as a school teacher and principal of a school. So tell us a bit more about your transition from working in that sort of environment into being self-employed. What was that like for you?
Well, that was one of the driving factors, actually. I was teaching biology at high school level, obviously being very proud of the notion of educating the youth, especially those that were then going to become professionals in the wellness industry, doctors and things like that, nurses and the like. But at the same time, it wasn't really fulfilling me in terms of what I felt I could be doing or what I felt needed to be done. So in essence, I was confronted by situations where there would be students in the classroom that were not really passionate about being there. And at the same time, I was extremely passionate about my subject, thinking that, you know, your biology, your health, your life and wellness is such a key aspect for all of us that it should be something that kids are made to have as a compulsory subject right the way through schooling. But instead, it's an elective, it's an option. So by grade 10, you can basically disregard any health and wellness learning beyond the basics of what you might have received before. So for me, this is a big problem because I find that in our society, we are challenged a tremendous lot by what's going on around us, you know, with all the advertising, the marketing campaigns that are out there, and the things that we are exposing ourselves to in terms of stresses and things that negatively affect our well-being and our health. So much so that we actually lose track of how easy it is to perhaps right that ship and get back in line with what we should be doing. So essentially, I was frustrated by the lack of numbers in the classroom, as well as perhaps the value of teaching in the school environment. So I've really developed my business to be more than just an individual facilitation program in terms of helping people as a personal trainer, but I've stepped that up to provide a service for corporates in terms of working with HR departments to actually get employee wellness increasing and improving within the business structure. And then also societal initiatives in order to actually get the communities and nations really on board with growth and bettering lives at every level. a key motivation for me was a personal tragedy. You, I'm sure, know about it as a friend of mine. When I lost my daughter, in terms of her being taken from me out of the country, I realized that the troubles that were part and parcel of what made my partner at the time do those things were the historical influences that shaped her life. So in essence, my wellness notion is to provide for people a mechanism in terms of dealing with the context of the situation to become better, to overcome those challenges so that they do not reoccur in their lives in terms of bad choices and unhealthy behaviors that will affect other people down the line. Yeah, because I really couldn't blame my ex for the things that she did, understanding where she came from and what her past was like in terms of shaping who she then became and her later actions. You know, so we all need to realize just how much we are shaped by our environment, and that is why I've sort of entered into the program of wanting to help people share my knowledge and experience about health and wellness, and how to manage the crazy world that we live in today.
What do you feel are the biggest challenges that people face out there? What's driving the unhealthy cultures?
Well, I suspect it is just the natural direction that our societies have taken. You know, a lot of people are talking, especially in this current context of Corona and the COVID situation, about conspiracy theories and things like that. But for me, conspiracy theories are merely just a term or a labeling of a cultural phenomenon. In other words, we all wake up in the morning, we go to work, we do our job in order to survive. We're basically very good at adapting. So whatever situation is presented to us in terms of what state our society and culture is in, we adapt to that situation. So we wake up in the morning and the norm is you get in your car, you go to work, you do your job, you come home, you earn some income, and you spend that money as you wish with some free time and recreation. So in essence, people are just very good at adapting because we don't want to sort of strive or have strife and struggle in our lives on a daily basis. You know, we want to obtain an equilibrium and a balance. So just like our internal environment in our body has homeostatic mechanisms that regulate and control everything. So my business aims to sort of allow that functionality to be translated into the outside world, in how we actually then become more able to modulate ourselves and go with the flow of life. However, not to be carried away by the currents of the negative. Yeah, so things like marketing and the mainstream media and how they portray many aspects of things that affect our health and wellness. You know, we are very easily swayed by a visual advertisement, for example, of anything like you know, a chicken dish or anything that's not necessarily healthy food, but it's put in front of us through marketing, and we end up being subtly programmed to make the poor choices that take us down this path of ill health. Yeah. So it's generally just going with the flow and the tide, and unfortunately the tide isn't directed towards the better side of things.
It's almost as though we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, so a key aspect as a previous educator, or I still obviously am involved in education a lot, and that's the key aspect of my business, is to provide for people the knowledge and understanding behind all of these aspects. So I'm basically taking what I would have done in the classroom to my senior students, the ones that are about to embark on the journey into the medical profession at university, and I'm bringing that to the public to your average Joe in the street, you know, your basic human being who's perhaps looking for a solution to make right some of the challenges in their lives.
Mm, 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 mm. Do you feel we've maybe kind of lost touch with some of the basics? Like, I know for myself, the earlier part of my career was kind of hallmarked by subsisting on pepper steak pies and Red Bulls and 4 hours sleep a night. And it's taken me almost to the age of 50 to learn how to eat well and sleep well and that kind of thing. Do you feel that humanity's kind of lost track?
Exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You know, we are, and that's why I say we are extremely adaptive. And my program that I'm promoting at the moment is actually called Adapt Ed.
Okay.
My name, Eddy Wellness, by the way, is tied into that concept of being a pseudonym or an AKA, I should say, an alias by which I go in terms of my business, because I wish to basically provide such great help for humanity that I want to take myself out of the equation as an individual or an entity. So eddybaby is this alternative persona who can obviously provide help to people.
Okay.
But yes, you know, we are certainly a very easily misled organism, you know, and as we adapt to our environment, we don't really appreciate how our internal environment is perhaps also adapting. So, for example, when you eat your pepper steak pie and your Red Bulls, heaven forbid, you know, your body makes do. Your body says, "This is what you've given me. I will provide and survive." You know, so your body gets by. And this is why we talk about in the modern day, we have lifestyle diseases. You know, things like diabetes, the obesity, and all the cardiac issues. What they're referring to now as metabolic syndrome, where you basically just have a really disrupted internal environment where your body's machinery is just taking strain because of the trash we're feeding. And it stems from us losing touch with our roots. Exactly that. You know, we need to slow down. We need to get back to nature, and we need to definitely ensure that we start passing on knowledge from generation to generation as parents to our children, so that they can actually benefit from what we are learning, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, and at the moment we have an epidemic of obesity in our country and many countries around the world. And these things are purely a construct of the lax attitude, I suppose, that stems from leadership, as well as our complacency with our position in the world and with our lives. You know, we are the apex predator on this planet, or the apex parasite, as many refer to us as. And in that context, we are not threatened by anything. So we don't have a challenge on a day-to-day basis on how to survive. And that results in us, you know, just taking the easy routes all the time. You know, we aren't pressured to make tough choices about what to eat and what to do with our time. Yeah, so we definitely have lost touch. And I think it's important, therefore, to make most of the adults aware of what they can do themselves, also so they can pass that information on to their children. You know, because you cannot expect schools to always do the everything of the parents. So as a society, as cultures around the world, you know, we've got to learn that the parents' job and responsibility is actually to look after their children, not worry about the next business meeting or how much they can sell the next day out in the real world.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of people do default to say, well, I'm out there earning a living so I can put food on the table to look after my children at the expense of looking after the children.
Mm.
Did you see that a lot as a teacher?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, that's part and parcel of why I was feeling frustrated. Besides my being an uncontrollable employee, was the sort of type of strange question some of these kids would say that were like really old wives' tales and absolutely like prehistoric belief system notions about their health and well-being. That for me were just totally alien and utterly laughable in the context of what we know today in terms of science. In terms of biological science, the things like drinking hot tea when you're hot so that you don't actually cool. I forget the silliness, but there were so many crazy things that it was really shocking to me. I was just absolutely appalled at the basic lack of knowledge around health issues.
Mm, mm, mm. Do you feel that being an uncontrollable employee makes you a better entrepreneur?
Probably, because you realize if no one's going to listen to you at the top, you're going to just have to go and do it yourself. And unfortunately, that was one of my challenges. Was sort of trying to not put my nose in other people's business, like the management of a school, and say, I think we should be doing this, we should be doing that. A prime example being the situation I'm now in here in Saudi Arabia. The school systems are struggling with concepts like the proper, appropriate way to feed children. So the nutrition in the schools is very rudimentary tuck shop based stuff, where it's just about basically providing them with junk food, or nothing really focused on important health and nutrition for a growing, exercising mind. So it's extremely pervasive, this whole culture of ours, where we are indoctrinating and training children to simply fit into a working role in the community. And I feel this is one of the greatest challenges of our time, because without an aware and awake and consciously mindful populace, this is why we've reached the stage where things like Corona become I don't know what to even call it anymore. Become the scourge of our existence, when in actual fact Corona is the least of our problems on this planet.
It's very interesting what you say about feeding at schools, because if I think back to my school career, the tuck shop was really just a place where you could buy sugar in different kinds of packaging. And sugar is one of the things that I've been trying to kick this year, because I found it's having far-reaching health impacts for me personally. And it's so weird how it's normalized, because when I've looked at my own sugar addiction, I've had to go all the way back to my childhood to find the roots.
Oh yes, sugar, hey? Yeah, the whole sugar thing now, by the way, is especially with the high fructose corn syrup, and that's pretty much thrown into so many things these days. Is the comparison now to the whole cigarette controversy that occurred a while ago, when there was lots of media confrontation around the ones that were trying to support smoking and say, oh, there's no real connection, there's only a correlation to cancer without being a causation. And we're now finding out that the same is true for sugar. So sugar is going through the same sorts of legal wrangle in terms of get the information out there to people, because it is, they found out now, as harmful as alcohol to your liver.
I can
So
believe it.
basically, when we have this high fructose corn syrup taken into our bodies, we don't get drunk in terms of dizzy and silly and lightheaded or whatever, in terms of the brain. But in terms of what's going on in the liver, it is definitely causing damage there. And obviously with all of these things, the damage is slow working and takes time to become a symptom. And that symptom obviously then doesn't always get diagnosed early on. And when it does get diagnosed, it probably will not be treated in an appropriate fashion, because we will think of shoving medicines and chemicals into our bodies to try and change something which is actually very simple to change in alternative means or methods.
Definitely. Now, something else I'm curious about, because your eddybaby, AKA, is very catchy.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. It's got a real kind of charm to it that makes you want to pay more attention. Where does it come from, and why did you decide on it?
Well, the name Ed has been a nickname of mine since I was in high school. It's a very silly story, really, but all that basically happened was there was a TV news reporter called Ed Herbst, and since we shared the same surname, some of my schoolmates decided to call me Ed.
Okay.
And at the time, I behaved rather poorly and got upset with him. So because of my irate response, they persisted. So they just basically were having a little go at me constantly with this name calling.
Yes.
And lo and behold, I couldn't shake it. So throughout my academic career at university, I was still called Ed, even though I changed the department where I had no school friends and things like that. It still came to be known. So for me, it was an ideal opportunity to, as I said earlier, utilize this as an alias, as a means of actually separating myself from some of my extremely noble intention, if I can be so bold to say. Because in the past, when you think about any people that have tried to make significant positive change in societies, they've either been very humble people, and I'm not that humble yet, or alternatively, they've been targeted as being, I suppose, self-righteous and a little bit too something or other. So for me, it just simplifies the process. It makes it easier for me to separate what I might perhaps say to someone, because I believe in being very honest and direct when it comes to giving some of the advice I give, as well as creating a joyful and a happy environment in which to practice one's healthy activities. But yeah, it's basically just a great way to separate myself from any emotional connection to something that I feel is very important to convey. And therefore just makes that whole exchange of information slightly more easier to accept. Because very often giving someone direct personal advice about their health, they'll quickly just say to me, "Oh, what about you?" Or, "You don't have your life sorted out. You're not like super rich. Why must I listen to you?"
I love that you've taken something that could have been a negative story and put a positive spin on it, and then actually just put it forward as your unique selling point. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yes,
it shows a great resilience and a great ability to see the bright side of a possibly negative situation. Somebody else could have taken that narrative and spun it into something negative, and instead you've gone, I'm just going to shine this light for everybody to see.
Thank you. Yes, it's certainly something that it wasn't easy to do, but it did come to me in a slight moment of, I suppose, ideology and silliness in thinking of great grandeur about myself, that what if I'm trying to do so much good that eventually someone wants to take me out? So I maybe thought, like nothing good ever came of these people that were doing good in the past. Like, look what happened to Jesus. He was crucified, so many other people have been assassinated. So I thought maybe I can at least hide myself behind something and therefore gain a little bit of security.
Oh, so now Eddie Baby's the fall guy.
Yeah, it's not all noble. A little bit cowardly, perhaps.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's a great story. So what have been your challenges in setting up a new business?
First and foremost, not heeding the advice that I originally researched and acquired. So I was a little bit foolhardy when it came to the money aspect. And I was reading a very good book about how to start a business by somebody. I should plug his name, but I don't know. Can't recall at the moment. But in that book, he mentioned how, if you're going to start a new venture, make sure you've got some capital. Make sure that you can at least provide for yourself, because you've got a plan on not making money to start off with. So that's very true. You must properly prepare yourself and just basically listen to the advice that's out there. There's so many people that have experience, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel, especially when it comes to some basics. So the fundamental things are basically do that. Take the advice and apply it. Don't think too casually about some things and sort of sweep them under the rug and say, oh, maybe that's not such a big deal for me because of this and that. Give due diligence to the important things. You find, and they will be common to many mentors and guides. So yeah, there won't be too many, but basic things are just follow what you learn and stick to those teachings, because they will basically help and set you straight. Yeah.
That's fantastic advice. I know I've certainly in created businesses often just gone, oh no, this doesn't apply to me, or this won't be that important, and then it becomes vitally important along the way. So that's great insight. And what has been your most exciting part about starting your own business?
Sure, it's the possibilities. As I said, I've got the 3 tiers of personal development, corporate, and then your social. Excuse me. But certainly, when I do think about what could be achieved, all of the future possibilities are so fantastic just to conceptualize and think about. Because I'm a helper by nature. So, when I can give of myself to improve and assist others, I really do feel that fulfillment. Something that was very soon apparent during teaching. When you get a kid that comes back to you after they've graduated matric, and they sincerely thank you for your time in the classroom, and they've managed to go on to a career within that field. It really is absolutely flattering and at the same time just extremely rewarding. So just seeing that's the light on the horizon, seeing the possibilities of the fruition of one's dreams, really. That's really fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing such an inspiring window into your world today, Quintin. If anybody who is watching would like to get in touch with you, where can they find you online?
Right. Well, I'm basically available on LinkedIn as eddybabywellness, and then also on Facebook.
Okay, and can you spell that for everybody who's watching?
Yes, quite simply, EDDYBABY, one word, and then wellness, WELLNESS.
Okay, fantastic.
And alternatively, of course, is an email contact. At the moment, I'm rebranding, so I don't have much of a presence besides LinkedIn and Facebook. So email is eddybabywellness@gmail.com.
Okay, that's awesome. And do you have any parting words from people out there who are thinking of leaving a job because they don't want to listen to the boss anymore, to start their own thing?
Well, first of all, do it. If you're thinking about it, do it. And once you do it, I think put the passion in. You know, if you truly want something to happen, and you believe in yourself, and you have that entire passion coming from your inner being, then things will fall into place to make it happen. You know, so many of these memes and motivational quotes that we see flashing up on Facebook and things like that, many of them hold true. And one of them for me is certainly that you can create many things if you have your belief in place, and if you actually put the passion and the joyful spirit of that passion into whatever you do. And things will work out. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was wonderful to get to know you a little bit better.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Mel. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege.